companion, the Lord's name in his heart. The highest thoughts fill up his mind as he calmly plays his part. Simple life of courage, step by step with faith, in knowing something higher, patiently he waits as he meditates in love, in love, in love, in love. He prays for understanding and compassion for mankind, for bliss and peace and wisdom and health of every kind, for all the whole world over, wherever they may be. He prays the inner eye will open, and everyone will see we're in a blissful sea of love, of love, of love. Sometimes a cave is his dwelling, at times a structured home. His feet may journey far or near, still he sees all as one. He prays for all our freedom, he prays for love divine and purity of heart, that one day we might find his face of life, the Lord of love, of love, of love. Peace is his companion, the Lord's name in his heart. The highest thoughts fill up his mind as he calmly plays his part. A simple life of courage, step by step with faith, in knowing something higher, and patiently he waits as he meditates in love, in love, in love, in love, in love.
Good morning, everyone. We're very, very blessed to have Swami Vedananda from the Vedanta Society of Northern California visiting us. He's a very senior Swami who joined the order in 1970. Met Swami Ashokananda in 59? 59?
That what?
When you met Ashokananda?
59? Yes, 59.
And he joined the order in 1970. So we're very, very happy to have him here. He's got a lot of information about Swamiji in California. So I will welcome him here.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be here in this temple among our the various centers that we have in the United States. Certainly this center is very, very unique. Each center has its own uniqueness, no doubt, but whenever one goes to another center, one feels that same tremendous attraction, and one feels the message that is coming through all of the personalities that have been involved in our movement, which was started by Sri Ramakrishna, of course, continued by Swami Vivekananda, and is being carried on by all the Swamis and all the sannyasinis, the monks and nuns, which our order is very fortunate to have as members. Now, I'm intending to speak about Swami Vivekananda's presence here in California, and because he is the one who actually formulated the start of everything that we have done. When Sri Ramakrishna passed away in 1886, he left actually all responsibility for the development of the energy that he himself had brought to this world. He left that development to Swami Vivekananda and to all the other direct disciples led by Swami Brahmananda, who was called Raja Maharaj, and the appellation Raja was given to him really by Swami Vivekananda, because Sri Ramakrishna had said that Rakal has the intelligence of a king, has the ability, the kingly, the royal ability, and Swami Vivekananda, following on that, urged everyone that their leader be Swami Brahmananda and he be called Raja. The actual formation of the order and the impetus behind that we spoke about last night when we had mentioned the founding or the original inspiration that was received by Swami Vivekananda when he was in South India at the very tip of the Indian subcontinent at Kanyakumari. The point was how to organize that. That was what concerned Swami Vivekananda when he, after that, even from India, even from America, he used to write letters to Swami Brahmananda and others in trying to organize how was this to be embodied. What was to be the physical carrier of the message that Sri Ramakrishna himself embodied and had brought to this world. So this is a continuing story. It is a huge tale. It is a very momentous event, really, in the spiritual history of the world. In India, it is recognized as such. In the rest of the world, it is recognized by those of us who are fortunate to have come in contact with that energy that was brought to this world by Sri Ramakrishna. We try to be aware of the immensity of what it is that we're doing. This is not always present in our consciousness. We don't really think usually, this is our natural state. We don't really think much about beyond our immediate surroundings and the implications of what we're doing as regards our immediate relationships with people, with the society, with the nation, with the world. But at times it's good for us to remember that we're not just individuals in an individual nuclear family. We are actors on a very much larger stage. We don't generally become aware of that, and only very few of us do, who have managed to be involved in activities that require or that bring about a greater fame, a greater renown. But really, each one of us is an important pillar in something phenomenal which Sri Ramakrishna started and which Swami Vedananda continued, which the other direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, led by Swami Brahmananda, who was called Raja, was the leader of this band of disciples. They were not, and it's not always easy for us to remember, we're not just part of a simple local thing, which is concentrated, in my case, to San Francisco, in your case, to Santa Barbara. This is part of a movement which is worldwide, as we all know theoretically, but as we may not feel deeply, perhaps, we may not feel that we're part of something very large and very important. But considering the people who started, the great forces that started this movement, if we think about it, if we consider that, it slowly becomes clear to us that what we do in our little circle of our own homes, our own next larger circle, our own centers, our own temples, has a significance which is quite much beyond what it appears to be. There are not too many forces in this world that work for larger causes, that work for larger aims and ends. But it is, I think, if one thinks about it, if one considers the nature of the individuals who were initially involved with this order, and considering the way the order has spread and the influence it has gained, slowly we must realize that what we do here in our own temples, in our own centers, is really part of a very much larger play that is going on. Of course, you could say, well, you're being very narrow-minded in this. You're amplifying the importance of what you're involved in and saying that this is a world-shaking institution. And when you look at the numbers of centers and the people involved, you say to yourself, well, we're only such a small group of people. What difference do we really make in the basic meaning of anything? But that is only a superficial view. If we consider the meaning that we have been given by these great souls who have come before us, the significance of the advent of Sri Ramakrishna, the significance of the advent of the Holy Mother and of the direct disciples, it has to be admitted that it's larger than simply what concerns each little temple. You here in Santa Barbara, me up in San Francisco, our temple, you say, oh, it's so small, the number of people who come there every week. Used to be, well, when I first came to that temple, if I was just there 5 minutes before the lecture, the hall was completely filled, over 200 people, and I had to undergo the embarrassment of being preceded into the temple by an usher carrying a chair, which he would majestically put down next to the aisle. And everybody else looking around to see who had just come into the temple, I would embarrassingly have to sit in that chair. You see, the temple was so full, 200 people per lecture was not at all unusual. Now, of course, you go there, you find, well, maybe 30, 40, like that. So here I am talking about the magnificence of this movement and the great future that it's bound to have. And you think, well, yes, as an idea, that's great, but it's way off in the wild blue yonder. But that is not the way that, if we really consider the matter, if we consider the importance of the people who started this and the people who continued in their footsteps, the great souls who have been leading this movement since then, it is not reasonable to think that the present size and status and influence is anything but the very smallest beginning. I mean, if you look at something like the history of Christianity, initially there were only 12 disciples. And out of those 12 disciples, they were not all in agreement either. And someone like St. Paul, who became the major propagator of Christianity, had not even become associated with the Christian movement at that time. So you could very well say, this is nothing. That the significance of this movement is nothing. And for many centuries it remained nothing. Then came a Roman emperor who found himself in such a situation that he could not go any further. He was about to be defeated. And he then made a resolution that if he could win this particular war that he was fighting, he would convert himself to Christianity, and he would make the whole of the empire Christian. So this happened, and then he said if he could win this battle, he had seen a sign in the sky, and with the Latin words underneath it, in hoc signo vinces, in this sign you will conquer. And it showed, I don't know exactly what he saw, the image of Jesus or something. He saw a cross. He saw a large cross, because the cross had become the symbol of Christianity. So when he saw that sign, he became Christian, he followed that, and the whole history of Christianity began to blossom. So in a sense, you could say that somehow we are, in a way, in that same situation now. Because we're just a small group of people here, a small group of people there. 12, 14 centers in the United States, maybe with the others, sub-centers, maybe 20. In Europe, we have like 14 different, I think 14 different national centers. In India, of course, we have like 130 or 140 or so. But still, consider India with a population of more than 1 billion, this is nothing. So you could say that how is it that you can imagine that this small movement, which started way back at the end of the 19th century, has been going on for over 100 years and has reached this stage. How can you say this movement is going to become so influential in the whole world? But the forces that we're dealing with are not forces that take time really into consideration. The force is there, it will have its result, it will act, the fruits will come, and that is because of the great magnitude of the individuals that started this movement. If you study the life of Sri Ramakrishna, if you study the life of the Holy Mother, of Swami Vivekananda, of Swami Brahmananda, of the other direct disciples, of these centers that were founded, slowly you have to become aware of the fact, the great importance of the message that has been given to us. The idea is God alone is real. The reality of this world is not the political situation which changes from generation to generation. It is not the social situation which slowly develops over time. The reality of this world is that God exists. There is a spiritual foundation to all of our perceptions. This is the message that is not something that was taught the other day by the great souls who taught it in our order, in our movement. This has been for thousands of years. This has been the message that has been carried by the great sages of the Vedantic tradition. Sarvam khalvidam Brahma. All of this is Brahman. No exception was made. Everything here is embodied with divinity. Every perception is a perception of that divine principle, that divine reality. Where is God? The answer is, where is God not? This is the essence of our message. And the particular emphasis that is appropriate to this age has always been brought by a great soul who came for that age. You say, well, that is ridiculous. How could these things happen like that? In the ancient Vedas, in the Upanishads, in the Bhagavad Gita, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Whenever, yada yada, dharmasya, of dharma, glanihi, the suppression of dharma, and the rise of adharma. Whenever that comes, whenever the rise of righteousness, of goodness, of wisdom occurs, whenever the suppression of goodness, of wisdom occurs, and the rise of its opposite, the rise of negativity, occurs in this world, the divine reality which is at the heart of everything becomes energized and manifested in such a way that ordinary people like us who don't have entry to these high realms who are simply trying to get to that point, it becomes obvious to us because it manifests in a physical form and becomes the teacher of humanity. So whenever dharma decreases and adharma, the reverse of righteousness, whenever that arises, and energy is created, a reaction is created. This is the way this universe is constructed. You can say, how does it happen? How does this thing, what is the mechanism whereby this occurs? That is, you have to study for many years to understand and to realize within yourself the presence of that reality. But the fact that it is present is something that can be obvious to all of us. We're living in an age which is part of a universal reality that will generate, that will cause the manifestation of the power of goodness whenever the power of its opposite increases. This is how it has happened since immemorial times, and it is still happening. What we're saying in addition to that is the incarnation, or the embodiment of that, if you don't want to use the word incarnation, the embodiment of the force of righteousness, which the Bhagavad Gita in that verse proclaims, that this will happen whenever unrighteousness becomes too predominant. Righteousness itself will create a means, a form, a reality to counter that. That has been, for thousands of years, has been the recipe for humanity. What we're saying is that the great soul who manifested as Sri Ramakrishna, who manifested as the Holy Mother, and who manifested as all the direct disciples, that whole embodiment is again a manifestation of what you might call, if you want to give it a name, supreme righteousness, or the energy to create righteousness where it seems to be lacking. That has again happened, and we are under the obligation, you could say, of actually participating in that movement. Now you say, well, that sounds very dogmatic, and who's going to believe that? We want to be coolly rational beings, and you're making us make it seem as though you're part of a miraculous event. However, I'm not the one to say it or to have begun to say it, but very great souls whom we are worshipping as being embodiments of a supreme principle, those people whom we have placed on our altar, mentally as well as physically, as the inspiration that we want to follow. Those great souls have said this, and it is totally in conformity with the ancient traditions of Vedanta, which go back thousands of years, that whenever righteousness declines and unrighteousness manifests to an extraordinary degree, that reality creates for itself a reality which manifests on this plane and converts the unrighteousness into righteousness, takes the path on which we are going and actually changes the direction so that that instinct or self-destruction which seems to be present in this world, no matter where you look, that instinct of self-destruction has been, our attention has been changed to look at the opposite of that, that whenever that instinct to self-destruction arises, the instinct to the opposite, the instinct to dharma, to righteousness, to peace, to a loving relationship rather than an adversarial relationship, that same force, that itself, the negativity itself causes the positivity to arise. That is what the scriptures say. Now you say, is this right or is this not right? That's up to each one of us to decide. But if you think about it, it is quite reasonable to think that this being that manifests itself in each one of us is the embodiment of an infinite, eternal principle. That is the basic statement of every religion. There is that eternal, infinite principle which is at our own heart, which is at our own center, which is the center of our own being and consciousness. It is quite reasonable to say that when that begins to be attacked or destroyed or decreased, that it would remanifest or recalibrate itself, to use a modern term, and the forces would arise to counter the negativity. So you say, all right, that's wonderful, you say that, but if you look at the world, you listen to the news, you find anything except that. You find things are getting more complicated, more diverse, more this, more that. But this is exactly what we're called to do. If you simply look at the surface of things, that is true. That is what appears. But we're called to be super intelligent. We're called to be the ones who look behind the surface of things. And the statement that is made is that the advent of a great phenomenon like Sri Ramakrishna, like the Holy Mother, Swami Brahmananda, Swami Vivekananda, the advent of that, the same force that brought the advent of that, is also going to carry on the job, even in our own daily problems and daily situations. And that is the message that has been given. And it's up to us to look around and to try to substantiate that and to see, yes, indeed, this is where we are. This is the situation nowadays. It looks extremely bleak, it looks extremely negative, but it has within itself also, at the same time as the negativity, in fact, the negativity itself seems to have brought a response from the positive aspect of things. So that is the context within which we're acting. That is we should not think, oh, we're here in a small temple, there are 40, 50 of us at our temple in San Francisco. Right now, because of all the COVID problems, we're not even getting 40 people, usually on Sundays. When I first used to go there were 200 people every Sunday at a lecture. And nowadays, if we get 40 people, that's considered an excellent attendance. Yes, we are very few, but within the nature of what we have to say, there is something which is not just, it is the end, or it shows the beginning of a new possibility, the beginning of a new creation, you could say. So we can say, well, this is imagination, you're just way transcending beyond what we can see. But if you look at the message that we carry, this message is of that type. The ancient Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, all these great scriptures, this is the message that we carry. Not only do we carry it, but the very embodiments of people who have actually followed those teachings and realized the truth of them is within our movement, within the order. People like Swami Vedananda, Swami Brahmananda, and all the direct disciples, sure. But look at the Swamis who came over to this country, Swami Prabhavananda, Swami Ashokananda, Swami Pavitrananda, all of them, you look at them. Swami Vivekananda, he started the Seattle Center, and he had very few people in his congregation, and one day he had nobody come to his lecture. Oh, he was so sad. Oh, how terrible it is. Nobody has come to the lecture. What has happened? He found out he had forgotten to unlock the door. So in a way, we are the same. There was another Swami in Chicago. That was before, Swami Vishwananda, I think, Swami Vishwananda. One day he found, again, the same thing. There was nobody. And finally, one person came and he looked down from an upper window, saw there was only one person there. I mean, this is the way it sometimes looks. We get 20 people, 40, 50 people. As I said, after the coronavirus thing, we have gotten maybe 35 people to our temple. That's all. And when I first came, as I said, there would be 200 people would be in the temple, and an usher had to precede you carrying a chair so you could sit down. And everybody would look, who is it who has come? That was when I first started going. It was 1959. So you could say, well, why are you being so sanguine? Why are you being so insistent that we're part of a great movement? We're just, doing our small thing here. It's doing a small thing of which there are thousands of similar small things. Taken all together, we are enormously, we are huge, we are significant. That is the message. Whatever it looks like, whatever it seems like, is only an appearance. We are assured by the great souls who have come before us that this message is something which is absolutely necessary, that the universe should hear it, that the universe should abide by it. And what is that message? It's the message of the ancient Upanishads. It's the message of the great sages that have taught these Upanishads from the ancient times, from Yajnavalkya in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad all the way to the modern teachers. We are part of something which is an infinite and an eternal movement. It's up to us how much of it we embody, how much of it we realize. Ultimately, the realization is just one alone. There's only one person there. That is God, or that is you. So we are here, all this many together, as a rehearsal for being able to be alone and embodying that, realizing that truth. So this is the message that has been given to us. Swami Vivekananda gave a lecture in San Francisco in which he spoke, "Is Vedanta the future religion?" He used that title, and the idea was, it is the future religion for those who accept it. So it is there and available for everyone. If this is not anything that one is interested in, if this is not anything that's important to us, there's no obligation. It isn't that there's going to be a price to pay if you don't if you don't fall in line with this. This is a very gentle and a very holy and a very sacred movement that has been started. It could not be anything but, considering the fact that Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother, Swami Vivekananda, the direct disciples, all saw the truth and the reality and the importance of this. They didn't see it all right away. Initially, Swami Yogananda was extremely opposed to Swami Vivekananda's lack of mentioning of Sri Ramakrishna's name in his. Swamiji gave only 2 lectures on his master in all the official lectures that he gave throughout America, Europe, and India. Really speaking, he only spoke deliberately only about Sri Ramakrishna in 2 lectures. And Swami Yogananda accused him. What is this? We are disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. You did not hardly ever mentioned his name. What is this? You're not implying that you're not really a disciple that's worthy of teaching these things. Swami Vivekananda got tremendously excited and annoyed about that. He left the room and he absorbed himself in his own quarters, and later on the monks came up there. They found him in deep meditation. And then Swamiji said, "You think that I don't appreciate Sri Ramakrishna, I don't appreciate his message, that's why I'm not teaching him. He has given me everything. He stands behind me whatever I do and makes me do what he wants. He has turned me over to the divine power. He has turned me over to the Divine Mother to do with me just as she likes." So this is the message, this is the antecedents that we have. These are the people who, these are the great souls that we follow. They are the ones. It's very difficult to get a direct message from God. But that message was given to the direct disciples, and they themselves brought it to us so that we could also have that inspiration, that tremendous dedication to follow this principle that is embodied by Sri Ramakrishna, was taught by the Holy Mother, taught by the direct disciples, became the embodiment of a tremendous movement in India. And by our own fortune and our own karma, you could say, we have become associated with this also. And it is our tremendous responsibility to embody that message. Not that we should go and talk to that. Some of us have to do the talking. And that means you can accept what we say, or you can neglect it, or you can ignore it entirely. But one thing that you cannot ignore is the influence of a life that's lived following those principles. If each one of us is able to live our life according to these basic spiritual principles that were brought here by Sri Ramakrishna, that were exemplified by the Holy Mother and by all of the direct disciples, if we can embody that ourselves, if we can first of all understand that message and then carry it into practice, that is our great contribution. That is all that God, in a sense, requires. There's an ancient statement in the old temple, in the Old Testament. There's an ancient statement in the Old Testament. I think it's in the book of prophets by Micah. What does the Lord require thee? What does the Lord require of thee? But to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. That is the message that has been brought to us also from these ancient traditions. Basically, they were all describing very similar things. But to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with that spiritual tradition, with that spiritual reality. If we don't, that is the most important part. If we don't live to embody and really begin to realize that spiritual element of life, it does decrease. It'll never become lost, but it definitely decreases. Because normally in our lives we don't understand. There's nothing spiritual that we can identify with. We identify with making a living, we identify with raising our families, we identify with all sorts of things. But the major thing that we're really identified with, that people get from us, that we can, each one of us becomes a preacher just by each one of us going out into society in our regular dealings with people. If we embody these high spiritual principles, each one of us becomes a preacher for that reality for which Sri Ramakrishna came, for which the Holy Mother came, for which Swami Vedananda, Swami Brahmananda, all the direct disciples came. Each one of us does that by doing what we do every day, by embodying, by walking the talk, as they say, by embodying the system that we preach, by embodying the reality. Why is it that we build these magnificent temples? We build them because there is a reality we're trying to live, we're trying to embody, we're trying to show, to manifest. There is a reality which is beautiful, which is eternal, which is infinite, which is totally satisfying. So we build our temples to be as close as possible to that, as close as possible to being everlasting and being embodiments of that which is beautiful, that which is holy, and that which is perfect. So by dedicating our lives to it, we become the embodiments of it, and we become the manifestation of that for everyone. And that's not monks and nuns, that's everyone. Each one of us is a messenger of God. Some of us have been officially anointed for that. Okay, that's fine. But we should never think that we are the messengers and everybody else has to listen. Everybody else becomes the messenger. As we embody that principle ourselves, each one of us becomes a center. Each one of us becomes a messenger. Thank you. There you go.
Thank you very much, Swami. That was really an inspiring talk. Now, Jayanti's going to finish with a song, And then will you come to the front door and meet and greet people when she's finished with her song?
Yes, yes. I can leave this here?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
giving us this.
Through my every thought and all the words that I say and everything that I do, please guide me in every way, each night and day, wherever place I may go. Please give me wisdom to know your love is in every heart. You fill each part. You're the light of the soul, the light of the soul. You're the love of all loves, the light of all lights, nearer than the nearest, dearer than the dearest. We are all your children, whether near or far. Help us always to remember just who we are, just who we are. We are your sons and daughters, sisters and brothers all. This lift of life you have given to us one and all, both great and small. You are the love of all loves, the light of all lights, nearer than the nearest, dearer than the dearest, the fountain of bliss, the abode of grace. Fill us all up with joy by the side of your face. Through my every thought and all the words that I say and everything that I do, please guide me in every way, each night and day, wherever place I may go. Please give me wisdom to know your love is in every heart. You fill each part. You're the light of the soul, the light of the soul. You're the love of all loves, the light of all lights, nearer than the nearest, dearer than the dearest.
Just have to make a couple of announcements, like what's happening next week. Okay, next week will be Swami Vedananda, and he's speaking on, it doesn't matter what you think. Wednesday, we'll have a regular class on Swami Ramakrishna Order at 5 o'clock here in the temple. And next Saturday, we will have the regular gospel reading at 5 o'clock in the temple. Okay? Please.
So then, now,
Now.
oh yeah, that's fine.
If you have a couple of questions, usually we have them after you greet people. They can come back.
Whenever you say.
Does anyone have questions and answers now?
So either I have answered all questions, which could really again be possible, or else I have stunned them so much that they...
Or both. Yeah, let's come to the door, Swami, and they might start asking you questions individually.
Okay.
They do that sometimes.
Now I think, they're going to have a microphone.
Yes.
Okay, because my hearing is not that good, so if they don't talk into a microphone, I may not understand. But then I should also... Okay. If nobody has any questions, I may be under the wrong assumption that I've been able to clarify everything to everyone. That will make me feel too bloated and...
Pranam Swamiji, I'm Somnath.
I can't hear that.
Pranam Swamiji.
Somehow I don't... Is the microphone on? You see, you can say all sorts of spiritual things and all of that, but when it finally push comes to shove, it's the electronics that govern.
Can you hear me?
Ah, okay.
I'm Somnath. Pranam Swamiji. My name is Somnath Sarkar.
Now you got to... I cannot...
I have just one quick question for you.
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Lecture was wonderful. One point you mentioned, not only we are such as you all, Reverend Maharaj, preaching for Ramakrishna's word, but any one of us can be a preacher. Could you kindly elaborate that little more, such as commoners like us, regular working people, how we can elevate ourselves to be like profound spiritual person like you?
I'm not hearing it.
You said that the monks and the sannyasins carry this message, but how can lay people, how can householders, the common people, he said, how can we also carry the message if we are not sannyasins?
First of all, nobody's a common person. Every one of us embodies that divinity, and some people embody it one way, some another, but everyone embodies that divinity. That's the first thing that generally we don't know. We think we're little people and we're doing little things, and we feel overwhelmed by the big world that is around us, pushing and pulling. Actually, we are part of that infinite reality. We are filled by that infinite reality. From the most ancient times of the Upanishads, that has been emphasized. So, now, I've demolished your original assumption. Now, what is your question? I shouldn't have demolished it before I heard the question.
How can the common people, who are not common, how can they manifest that more?
In a practical sense, anyone must, in order to be effective, they must yearn for the truth. That is, the first requirement is yearning. Sri Ramakrishna made that very clear. The first requirement is to want to know, to want to understand, to feel incomplete if we don't understand. That it cannot be emphasized enough. Yearning is the absolute first principle. I want to know, I want to realize, I want to understand. Then the second principle is somehow to become associated with a great soul. Now, that you say, well, how is that possible? Actually, in India, the principle is that when the disciple is ready, the teacher appears. We think, oh, we got in touch with a certain spiritual movement, and we became interested, and so forth. We become interested, and then we go, we search for more information, and then we hear that one should have, the spiritual teaching should be communicated to us by someone who has advanced a certain number of steps on that path, so that he or she can... What?
Just ignore me.
Is that all right? You see, Mother has to come and solve all our problems. And Sri Ramakrishna also felt that way, and Swami Vedananda felt that way. When the Mother came and opened the door, then realization dawns. So here you've seen a demonstration of it. The thing is, the first thing one wants to know, one needs, is yearning. Sri Ramakrishna never did not come to the end of that insistence. He always insisted that yearning should be the first thing. I want to know. Then after that, the teacher appears. The method of learning appears, the technique appears. But unless you want to know, you can have, God can be in front of you and you simply will not see. So the first thing is yearning. Do you really want to know deeply down? Do you want to know? Do you want to have that wisdom? And then slowly the door will open. Something will happen, some teaching you will see, maybe in passing, you will see in a book, you will see something. You read so many things in books, maybe even the newspapers, you see something. But if that yearning is there, you'll pick up on the slightest impulse, the slightest hint, you'll pick up, oh, there's something here that is interesting. When I was at the University of California in Berkeley, and I had rented a room in a rooming house, and I was there studying, and but I used to listen to a radio station. It was called KPFA. If you've been to the Bay Area, KPFA is one of the, you could say, far-out stations. And on that station, which is interested in philosophy, spirituality, all sorts of things are presented there. Anyway, there was an Episcopalian priest, Episcopalian father. His name was Alan Watts. He was giving a lecture on Taoism. And of course, I'd never heard anything about Eastern religions at all. And I'd been studying science, so I was not particularly interested in religion. But when I heard this man, just happened to hear him lecture on Taoism, something in there said to me, this is very interesting, this is very important. So I started listening, and I became kind of a little bit attuned to his type of thinking. But I didn't think much of it. But then one of the other roomers in this rooming house attended a lecture by Swami Ashokananda just after the new temple had been constructed in San Francisco. And so he said, "Oh, it's a wonderful person, magnificent person. Oh, he's so dynamic, so forceful, so this, so that. You must come with me." I said, "Well, all right, all right." So I went. And we sat there in the auditorium. This is the new temple auditorium, had just been dedicated. And the Swami came in very calmly, very majestic. He got up and he gave his totally intellectual talk, not at all dynamic, not at all forceful and world-shaking. So I wrote a note to my friend, the fellow roomer in that rooming house in Berkeley. I said, "Is this the dynamic, fantastic personality that you said that I would see?" So I passed it to him. And he wrote back, "I don't know who this is. He may be an imposter." This was Swami Shantasrupananda. And he, of course, this was 1959. In 1993 or 83 or something like that, maybe 1970, he went back to India. And he had stayed at the Lucknow ashram of Swami Vedananda as his guest. And then he finally, in 1996, he passed away. I saw him when I went to India in 1992 and spent many days with him. That Swami, when he passed away, I was told by Swami Sridharananda, who came to visit us in Olima later, and he gave me the special message. He passed away after he passed away with his hair standing on end and with a smile. And when the life left the body. Now that is the typical, traditional, classical way a knower of Brahman is supposed to pass away. They don't all pass away that way. But if he does pass away that way, that is an indication that he is a knower of Brahman. Now, that was the Swami who, when he walked up on the platform that night in 1959, my friend said, "Who is this? I don't know who this is. He must be an imposter." So we should all be imposters like that. Anyway, now you see I've even forgotten your question.
How do householders manifest more of that divinity?
How
does a householder, how does someone who is not a renunciate bring out more?
No, the point is, we are supposed to be given the name of God. And we're given that as a special, that is our special entrance into the divine realm. And by the repetition of this name of God, which is called japa in the Indian tradition, the mind becomes attuned to that. And we become more and more, we should become, let's put it this way, we should become more and more attuned to that spiritual reality. And slowly it becomes more and more significant to us that at the heart of everything is God, is the divine reality. Everything else in this universe is very good insofar as it helps us to get closer to our spiritual nature. The main truth that we want to embody is that we have a body, but the body is not our essence. We have a mind, but the mind is not our essence. Our essence is something, the body comes and goes, the mind becomes very brilliant, intelligent, then it becomes very dull, and maybe it becomes totally insensitive, and then again it goes day and night, it falls asleep and all that. That is our normal condition, but that is not our basic nature. Our basic nature is something which is infinite and eternal. The reality of God is the reality of ourselves. We think I'm a person and I'm studying for this and I'm working for that and I'm achieving this and I want to achieve that and I'm terribly disappointed I couldn't achieve this. This is normally the way it goes on. I love this, I hate that, I'm totally indifferent to this. Everything that moves and changes is the truth of our life on the surface. But at the heart of things, there is a reality that has never come and can never go. We can never die. Death is something which happens only to the body. Even some people in their old age may become mentally incompetent. The mind comes and goes. We're not the mind. Our own reality is not the body and not the mind. We use the body and we use the mind, and we need them in order to manifest our maximum potential. But they are not our essence. At our heart there is something which has never come, and which can, because it has never come, it can never go. That is the reality of God within. God may try to, ignore us. Sometimes the great knowers of God are known to do this. They'll deliberately ignore a person. They'll deliberately deny a person. But God can never do that. The knowers of Brahman can do that in order to achieve your own spiritual greatness, your own spiritual success. But God, it is the only thing that is impossible for God is to ignore himself and to ignore his reality in you. That he can never do. God himself should not be he or her, she or he. It is that reality which has neither gender nor form, is at the very heart of our own reality. That is what we have to remember. In each one of us there is a truth that was never born, has never been created, and because it has never been created, it can never be destroyed. Where is the unchangeable? I studied physics, and in physics we ask such questions. What is the change of this changing into that? But the one thing physics cannot answer is, what is the unchangeable? What is it? Is there anything in this universe which does not change? Is there any reality which is beyond all change? And that is what we slowly begin to realize, begin to understand, begin to appreciate. The ultimate reality within each one of us is not that which changes. Our body comes and goes. We were born, we grew up as little children, we studied, we had families of our own, and we then these families have families, and we retire, and eventually we pass out of this existence. That's only the manifestation. The reality, that which is at our heart, has never been created and can never die. So when we finally realize God, which may happen after who knows how long, but that's what we're aiming for. The final aim of our life is to realize that which is changeless. The reality of God is the reality of that which is changeless, which is always there, which is full of all blessed qualities, which is infinite, eternal, and all blessings. That is what we aim for, and these great souls insist that that reality is within ourselves. Tattvamasi, from the ancient Upanishads, this has been the teaching. You are that. And so naturally everybody says, well, what is that? That is what you find out when you reach it. And what is the way, what is the method of reaching it? Every teacher will give us, that is the function of a spiritual teacher. It is to give you a method to reach that. The spiritual teacher does not, he can elevate you into he or she can elevate you into that. But the most precious thing the spiritual teacher gives is the conviction that the reality of everything that changes is that unchangeable divine essence. And that is the final thing that we have to realize, because everything else changes. I can realize all sorts of things about this world, how wonderful this is, and that is, how this should be done and that should be done, but all that will change. The one thing that never changes is our own inner self, our own inner truth, our own inner reality, which is infinite, which is eternal. That is what we have to realize. That is what we have to understand. And that is what the teachers teach us from. I mean, we're just preschoolers. We're not even in first grade yet. We're still in kindergarten. Maybe if there's anything below kindergarten, maybe that's where we are. You know, we're just at the very beginning of things. But that same trail which begins in kindergarten ends not at Harvard or MIT or any such great place. The ultimate reality of everything that we do ends in that infinite and eternal. And that is what we're trying to get to with everything we do, is an attempt to realize the infinite and the eternal. Even the simplest thing that we do, when we clean the steps of the shrine, the idea is, I want to understand the reality of God. When we do our work for our families, I want to see the presence of God in all these family members. When we do anything, anywhere, we want to eventually realize that everything that's around us, which is constantly changing, at the heart of all of that is something which never changes, has never come into existence, has always been in existence. That is what we're trying to get, and slowly, by this way and that way, we get closer and closer to that. And eventually someone will come along and tell you, okay, turn around, look at this, and suddenly you will see that that is it. So that someone who tells us, turn around, look at this, that is the spiritual teacher. And the point is, looking at this may take you 30 or 40 years, that's all right. In the process of that, you will see it ever more clearly. I've spoken too much. You people have been cowed into silence. That is too bad.
That was a wonderful answer.
Swamiji, can you tell us why someone would take to the monastic life? Why would someone take to the monastic life?
Why was there?
Why would someone take to monastic life?
Somehow I can't understand the question. Can you relay the question? Oh, you've got to tell a microphone.
Why would someone take to monastic life?
Why was someone?
Why would someone take to monastic life?
Oh,
I feel like you're the best person to tell us why.
I totally misunderstood it. Something about taking somebody's life, you see. So. Somehow I knew that couldn't be the right question. Why would someone take to monastic life? The basic answer is because they can't help it. And really, that is very, very close to the truth. You cannot help it. I mean, if you understand what is involved in monastic life, very few people would want it. It is, you have to do this, there's always a mahanta, someone who's in charge and this and that, who would want to submit to all of that? The point is, you begin to realize that everything else in life is only temporary. In other words, you get what you ask for, but the basic question never goes away. That is the wisdom one attains by doing spiritual practices, by obtaining a spiritual teacher, by following spiritual rules and regulations, by joining a convent or a monastery. The basic thing one realizes is, or one should slowly become more and more aware of, is that every answer gives rise to another question. So what we finally yearn for is an answer that does not give rise to any further questions. And that to achieve that in a dedicated way, one does not have to become a monk or a nun. Everyone at any stage can go to that. That's the ancient Hindu tradition. From any stage, either as a student or as a householder or as a retiree or as a totally, one can reach the fourth stage, the total stage of sannyasa, total renunciation. That becomes the aim, The apparent aim of all our apparent desires is never fulfilled by the satisfaction of those desires. The only way all of our satisfactions are achieved and all of our desires are achieved is when the desires themselves disappear. No desire can ever be fully answered until one becomes that which one desires. So our aim, the aim of spiritual life, is to realize that what we, not only to become, but what we really are, is that infinite and that eternal reality. Aham Brahmasmi. Tattvamasi, I am Brahman, you are that. All of those famous Sanskrit quotes are what one is supposed to realize. And the Upanishads, for instance, the Chandogya Upanishad, the question is again and again asked, please tell me more, please explain the reality of things to me. The student constantly asks, and the teacher comes up with one example after another. And the teaching at the end of each example is the same. Tattvamasi, you're asking about something, you're deeply desiring something, you're marvelously yearning for something which you already are, but you're not aware of it. So it's that awareness which you're yearning for. It's not something that is totally miraculous that has to be achieved and someone has to touch you with a magic rod and suddenly you realize everything. If it happens that way, wonderful. But that's not the purpose of it. The purpose is to find out what you really are, what you are already. It's not to achieve anything. It's to understand what has already been achieved. Or it has not even been achieved because it always was. You never were anything but Brahman. You never have been anything else. There's no way you could be anything else than Brahman. But you don't realize it. That is the big but. So that big but takes generations to slowly try to figure out. And if you don't finish it in one generation, no problem, we got another generation in store for you. You want it? Okay, here it is. So there's no way of escaping that. This is the Hound of Heaven. There used to be a poem called The Hound of Heaven. I forget who composed it. But the point is, the Hound of Heaven, hound of course is a dog, who is going on a trail, who is sniffing on a trail, following a trail. So that Hound of Heaven is constantly hounding you, hounding each one of us. That is our true nature. That is constantly telling us, why don't you find me? I am here, here, here. Here is Brahman, as clear as on the palm of one's hand. What was that? That was a famous story. Where will you look for Brahman? Oh, that was a very famous story. Wonderful, I can tell that story. There is at Belur Math, and all of my friends who are familiar with Belur Math will know that wonderful tree in the courtyard of Belur Math, between the Math office and the original monastery building. There is a mango tree, and it's so sacred to our order that they have built. The poor thing is so old. Its branches would drop down to the ground, it would have died. So they put a brick structure underneath each branch to hold the branch up. Because under that tree, there was a bench. And it's looking down on the Ganga, the steps to the Ganga are there, the river is there. Swami Vivekananda was sitting on that bench in that courtyard in front of the monks' quarters. Of course, in those days, no, there must have been monks. Anyway, that bench was there, the tree was there. So Swamiji was sitting on that bench, and Swami Premananda, Sri Ramakrishna's disciple, was doing the worship in the Master's shrine in the monks' quarters. Yes, the monks' quarters were built at that time. So Swami Premananda had come to get a container of Ganges water, Ganga Jal, to carry up to the shrine to be used during the worship. And as he came up the steps, Swami Vivekananda saw him. Swamiji was sitting under this tree, on this bench under this tree. And he was in a very exalted state of mind. He saw Swami Premananda come by. And suddenly he called out to Swami Premananda and to the few other people who were listening there, "Where will you go to see, to realize the immanent Brahman? Where will you go to see that reality, to see God, to see... Where will you go? Here, here, here is the immanent Brahman. Shame on those who, neglecting the visible immanent Brahman, put their minds on anything else." And he said it with such force that everyone simply froze in place and had a vision of that reality. Each one experienced some reality. There were just a few people there, but each one of them experienced that spiritual reality when Swamiji said, "Here, here, here." Swami Premananda was up to his, going up the stairs to the shrine for doing his worship, froze in his footsteps. And for some time, nothing moved, until finally Swamiji said to Swami Premananda, called out to him, "Okay, go and finish your worship." And then the mood broke and everybody went on doing their ordinary things. But that is the point. Where will you go to see Brahman? That question is asked to all of us. Right now it's being asked. Where will you go to see Brahman? Here, here, here is the visible Brahman. Shame on those who, giving up that search, to put their minds to other things. Anyway, now I forgot the question that was asked.
That was a good answer. The question was, why would someone take to monastic life?
Oh, okay.
That covered it.
Okay. Yes, that tree is still there in Birumat, between the temple, between the main temple and the monks' quarters. There is that they have now put a mass of bricks, a brick wall underneath to support the poor tree's branches. But it is still there in that courtyard. Or at least it was in 1993, I don't know.
It's still there.
It's still there.
It's still there.
Okay, okay.
Anybody else have any question? We can repeat it.
I can't hear anything, so...
She wants someone to ask a question, so you'll say more.
Oh. All right. Whatever.
When did you finally meet Swami Ashokananda?
When did I meet him? Well, at the next lecture. But you see, I was an eager scientist in those days, and I was not going to be involved in any, I was going to be convinced. I was not going to be involved in anything if I wasn't convinced. So I attended his lectures, Swami Ashokananda's lectures, from December 59 until the spring of 1962. Now, if you think you're hard to convince, I am together, and outside the temple, the men anyway, men devotees would get together and smoke outside the temple. In those days, people did smoke, and they smoked even where others could smell the smoke. Nowadays, of course, everybody's very careful about everything, and you're not allowed to do this. In those days, anyway, they stood on the sidewalk and smoked, the men. And so we got into discussions, and then we decided to go to there was a dining hall, not a dining hall, a diner on Lombard Street, which is about 4 blocks from Vallejo Street. And so we used to go there and have coffee. And then we would discuss the lecture, what the Swami said, what he meant. Do we understand this? Do we understand that? What is this? And afterwards there was a lady who was a teacher at San Francisco State University. She was a professor of philosophy, graduated from Cal and became a professor at San Francisco State. Her name was Nancy Tilden. Her married name was Jackman, Nancy Tilden Jackman. Anyway, she was professor of philosophy, and because I was at the University of California, and she befriended me, and she used to invite me. She and her husband shared an apartment about 2 blocks from the temple on Broadway. So she invited us for lunch, and she and her husband and the two of us would talk about the lecture and what the Swami said and why he said that. And she was fierce. She told us about the goddess Kali and what goddess Kali, her characteristics are. And I thought, oh my God, what is this? And then she told us about samadhi, people who entered samadhi who appeared to be dead but were not really dead. Now, if you want to turn somebody off from Vedanta, you talk to them like that and it'll for sure do the trick. So I thought, what is this lady talking about? Anyway, something kept me going, and so week after week, this Richard Allen and I used to go to her and her husband's flat for lunch, and slowly we got a little idea of what things were, and slowly. But this was 1959, 1960. It was still 1962 before I ever talked to the Swami. And then the most amazing thing was, I finally asked him for an interview. And I thought, okay, my questions will be answered, my doubts will be satisfied. So I went in. He used to hold interviews in the new temple in his office after the lecture. So I went in and expected him to clear all my doubts. And the first thing he said is, "What have you got to ask me?" Well, I had nothing to ask him. I wanted him to clarify the whole of Vedanta. So, little by little, I went to an interview, went to another interview. went to interviews for, I think, 2 years or something before I finally decided, yeah, this has got to be the thing. And then I finished my degree at Cal, and I came down here to Pasadena because I was supposed to serve 2 years in the Army, because I had gone to, this was a time of the Vietnam War and everybody was drafted, and they said they wouldn't draft me if I wanted to finish college and join the Reserve Officers Training Corps and then serve in the Army afterwards. Okay. And then I came here to Pasadena, to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and I asked Swami Ashokananda. Swami Prabhavananda was here 1950, no, by then it was 1963. And I asked him, the Army wants to send me to Pasadena, and I'll be there with Swami Prabhavananda Center in Hollywood. Should I go? And he said, yes, do go. So I went, and Swami Prabhavananda said, "You are the son of my brother, Swami Ashokananda, therefore you're my nephew." So I became his nephew, and I used to see him and visit the temple in Hollywood, and saw Christopher Isherwood reading his, I think he read from the Gospel, attended the Kali Puja at night, all of that. And then once I finished with the Army, I went back to San Francisco, and then eventually joined the monastery. There, in 400,000 words or less, you have a brief description.
That's perfect timing. It's about time to head down.
You see, freedom has been achieved. Okay.
Oh, you got your shoes on still? I thought